Volcanoes can occur wherever a weak spot in Earth's crust is found. That is to say, a volcano is a weak spot in Earth's crust where molten material comes to the surface. In this image, we see what we often think of when we hear the word volcano. Molten material, called magma, rises to the surface and pushes through that weak spot. Once the magma is on the Earth's surface, though, we give it a new name, lava, which of course is molten rock found on the Earth's surface. Now, let's take a look at some common areas where volcanoes form. This map is where many of the world's volcanoes are located. Volcanoes occur in belts that stretch across the continents and the oceans. Perhaps the best example of this is the Pacific Ring of Fire. Just like it sounds, this is a ring of volcanoes that circles the Pacific Ocean. Another band of volcanoes occurs across northern Africa and the Middle East. If you look at the Atlantic Ocean on this map, you'll notice another band of volcanoes running down the middle of it. Let's take a closer look now at how volcanoes form in these different locations. Many volcanoes form near convergent boundaries, where plates collide just like the two plates that we see here in this image. At convergent boundaries, subduction occurs. The denser plate sinks to the mantle and becomes magma. The magma rises toward the surface and breaks through the crust, forming volcanoes. The resulting volcanoes can be on land, for example, the Andes Mountains or the volcanoes in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, but they can also rise from the sea. The volcanoes form a string of islands that can be called an island arc. Examples of island arcs include Japan, New Zealand, and the Philippines. These type of volcanoes form the Ring of Fire. Volcanoes can also form along divergent boundaries, and these can occur on land or under the ocean. A divergent plate boundary is where the crust is pulling apart because the two plates are moving away from one another. These areas are often called rift valleys, where the crust is pulling apart. The Great Rift Valley is in East Africa and is formed by a divergent plate boundary. These areas are also called mid-ocean ridges, and they can be caused by the crust being lifted up by a hot spot in the mantle. Most volcanoes form along mid-ocean ridges at divergent boundaries. Lava flows from the cracks in the ocean floor and gradually builds new underwater mountains, like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This is the area in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean that we discussed earlier.